Dr. Anthony Fauci and other top scientists at the National Institute of Health rake in over $350 million in royalties paid by third-party companies, which we're thinking pharmaceutical companies here. And this is all after claiming that they do not receive kickbacks. Dr. Anthony Fauci had said that he does not receive royalties, he does not have patents, he does not get kickbacks. And so we're going to get to this whole story in just a minute. But before we do, I'm Dr. Nick Zarowski and welcome to the channel. Be sure to subscribe and also check out all my natural health videos at www.drz.tv. While you're over there, you can become a member and members get access to premium content there. One of our most recent pieces in our member portal is how to read a blood test from a holistic perspective. We also do lots of other great Q&As on there and help you improve your health naturally, and most importantly, it supports us in making content just like this. So go to www.drz.tv and become a member today. So let's dive in here because this is really interesting and breaking news. Here's the thing, is that from the very beginning of all of the COVID everything, there's just so many fishy things going on if you're paying attention. Anything from research being manipulated to data being manipulated, things not being counted appropriately. And then, of course, we had the illustrious Dr. Anthony Fauci, who was making daily broadcasts on your news channel that you love to watch. And the fact is that he was basically, the good guy out there, the guy who was honest and ethical and moral and had integrity and intelligent and everything that you hoped you would find in a doctor, especially when you're scared of something like COVID. Now, the fact is that a lot of people didn't know what to think, but if you started following some of the work I was doing and you followed, people who were talking truth, then you realized there were so many fishy things going on. And you know what? It seemed very unbelievable because when Dr. Anthony Fauci was approached by Robert Kennedy Jr. saying, hey, this guy's receiving kickbacks off of what he's basically peddling, he swore up and down he is not. As a matter of fact, Robert Kennedy Jr. was kicked off of most social media for making claims like this because they were considered lies and false, and they were also considered to be statements that would deter people from going and getting a shot that Dr. Anthony Fauci was peddling as a marketing wing from the pharmaceutical companies, okay? So it's estimated that the fiscal years from 2010 and 2020, more than $350 million in royalties were paid by third-party agencies, or third parties to the agency of the NIH scientists. Now, this is really interesting because, when we look at this, we might find that it's not ethical, it's not moral, but it may actually fall into the lines of being legal. And this is the big problem with these agencies, like the National Institute of Health and the FDA. They are literally just pay-to-play operations. When it comes to the pharmaceutical companies, they pretty much are running these agencies because they're funding the whole thing. So as we look at this article, they say recently our organization at openthebooks.com forced the NIH to disclose more than 22,100 royalty payments totaling nearly $134 million paid to the agency and nearly 1,700 NIH scientists. Okay, how do you feel when these scientists and these guys like Dr. Anthony Fauci, who are getting on TV nightly, just basically belittling those who aren't following their drug protocols, and then also telling you this is what you need to do? How do you feel when they're getting kickbacks like this? I mean, I don't feel too good about it. It's actually quite crazy. These payments occurred during the most recently available period, 2009 to 2014. The production is the result of the federal lawsuit against the NIH. The agency admits of holding 3,000 pages of line-by-line royalties since 2009. So far, they've produced only 1,200 pages. The next 1,800 pages of production will cover the period from 2015 to 2020. So really what we're probably going to see is that they're actually being paid way more than this. Because if you think about it, they've only actually discovered like half the paperwork, actually less than half the paperwork, and they've already discovered $350 million in royalties. This is the National Institute of Health. This is an institution that you are paying tons of money for in taxes. Like, remember, the way that the government gets money is through taxes, right? You are funding these scientists. You are funding these guys like Dr. Anthony Fauci. And then they're also getting royalties and acting as a marketing wing to big corporate interests. Like, this is getting crazier and crazier every day. However, what the NIH has produced to date gives us insight into the undisclosed royalty largesse. For example, over 900 scientists were estimated to be receiving royalties. So now we know that the universe is much larger. Since the NIH documents are highly redacted, we can only see how many payments each scientist received, and separately, the aggregated dollars per NIH agency. This is a gatekeeping at odds with the spirit and perhaps the letter of the open law records. We found agency leaderships and top scientists at the NIH receiving royalty payments, okay? So, well-known scientists receiving payments during the period include Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Health and Allergy and Infectious Disease, and the highest paid federal bureaucrat. Okay, so this is important. He is the highest paid federal bureaucrat. He received 23 royalty payments. And when we look at this, this is interesting because Robert Kennedy called this out, and then basically everybody went after him for it. He just had a pile on. And here's the thing that's so interesting about this too, is when we look at it, it all has to do with following party lines. So if you're a Democrat, you are so far up the colon of Dr. Anthony Fauci, it's unbelievable, right? And the fact is that they don't want anything that could be negative to come out against this guy. I mean, someone like Robert Kennedy Jr. is an actual Democrat who is calling this guy out, right? Because it's wrong. Like I said, maybe it could fall under the lines of legal, but is it ethical? Are taxpayers okay with this guy being paid $456,000 a year, acting as a federal employee, and then getting kickbacks and acting as a marketing wing on national TV every single day to these big pharmaceutical companies, all while claiming that he's just doing God's work out there? I don't think people are okay with that. Francis Collins, National Institute of Health Director from 2009 to 2021, received 14 payments. He's paid $203,500, once again, a federal employee. Clifford Lane, Fauci's deputy at NIAID, received 8 payments, okay? And he makes $325,000 a year. In the above examples, although we know the number of payments to each scientist, we still don't know how much money was made because the dollar figure was deleted. So the fact is that though they're able to see that these guys are all getting royalties and kickbacks and they have an idea of how much, over $350 million, the fact is that the NIH is redacting a whole bunch of the information so that nobody can actually see it. And once again, this is something that's paid for by the taxpayer. How do they have the right to hold that information from you when their people are getting kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies? It's been a struggle to get any useful information out of the agency and its royalty payments. The NIH is acting like royalty payments are a state secret, and they're not, and they shouldn't be. Now, the NIH defied the Federal Freedom of Information Act and law and refused to even acknowledge our open records request for the royalty payments. We filed a FOIA last September. The NIH used expensive taxpayer-funded litigation to slow-walk royalty disclosures, releasing the oldest royalties first. Although the agency admits to holding 3,000 pages, it will take 10 months to produce them, 300 pages per month. With Judicial Watch and our lawyers, we sued the NIH in federal court last October. So basically, the NIH is just hiding everything, right? And then when they say, hey, produce this stuff, like you got 300,000 pages, just print the suckers off, right? You don't need to take 10 months to do it. But the fact is they're going through, they're redacting everything, they're hiding everything. The whole thing, just like the FDA, is a load of nonsense. The NIH is heavily redacting key information on the royalty payments, as I just mentioned. For example, the agency erased 1, the payment amount, and 2, who paid it. It makes the court-mandated production virtually worthless despite our use of the latest forensic auditing tools. The NIH is essentially telling you, the taxpayer, to shut up and pay up. They'll run things. They have forgotten that they work on behalf of the American people, as I mentioned already. When these federal agencies get money, It comes from you, the taxpayer. You have a right to see this. The agency has become a lot more secret since 2005. In 2005, the Associated Press successfully used FOIA to crack open the NIH royalty database. They found that 900 scientists collected $9 million in royalties. Okay, so what good are these government agencies if all they're doing is basically acting as a marketing wing for the pharmaceutical companies? And this is like how corrupt they are. It's awful. And so the fact is Dr. Anthony Fauci has lied and lied about this when called out. You know, if a doctor is going to be paid and he's just being that good citizen making, nearly $500,000 a year, and then he's going to go just pick up bags of cash all over the place because he's getting kickbacks, I don't think people are going to be okay with that. Like if he just came out and said, hey, look, I'm getting kickbacks from these different pharmaceutical companies, and so just know that even though I'm recommending them, I am, actually getting a kickback. That would be honest, and I think people would be okay with that. It's just like when I tell you on, any of my videos, go get a supplement that I'm recommending. I mean, there's no secret that we are using that as an income source in order to actually fund what we're doing, right? We're not acting like it's not us that you're buying it from. Of course you're purchasing from us, but you're doing that to support our efforts, right? You're doing that because we added value to your life, right? When we go and say, hey, become a member, it's not like we're secretly acting like you're not paying us. No, I mean, you're paying us because we need your support. But I don't think Dr. Anthony Fauci needs your support after making about $500,000 in his federal income, and then he's hiding it, and then raking in millions of dollars, all while lying about it. So it's like, if you're going to be a doctor and recommend things, like just be honest. Like, yeah, we are getting a kickback on it. Like we are getting a kickback when you support us, obviously, right? Furthermore, 51 scientists at the National Institute of Health royalty recipients were then working on experiments involving inventions for which they were already being paid. Among the 51 scientists doing experiments involving inventions for which they were being paid royalties was Anthony Fauci, then and current director of the National Institute of Health. Fauci received $45,000 between 1997 and 2004 for some experiments in AIDS. To this day, Fauci continues to receive NIH-approved perks without a lot of accountability. For example, in February 2021, he received a $1 million prize from the Dan David Foundation in Israel, speaking truth to power during the Trump administration. Like, that's ridiculous. So then the big question is the Dan David Foundation, right? We know that the NIH gives out billions of dollars in grants. Has the Dan David Foundation by any chance been a recipient of these billions of dollars? I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there because that would make sense, because this is how these organizations work, right? You pay them in some grants. Dr. Anthony Fauci signs on the dotted line. They get grants. And then next thing you know, they're just awarding Dr. Anthony Fauci for his amazing work, right? Today, the NIH is a revolving door of tens of billions of dollars in government grant making, coupled with hundreds of millions of dollars in private, non-transparent royalty payments. There needs to be more sunshine put on this whole situation. When a federal bureaucrat pops up on television giving us health instructions, who has paid them and for what research and what technology is a pretty reasonable question to ask. Once again, if I recommend something to you, it's because it's no secret that you are supporting us. If he is getting on national TV day after day, acting as if he has no involvement in this wonderful shot that these wonderful companies who rip everybody off and like literally have crimes against humanity, pinned on their shirt. If he's giving advice to utilize these shots and acting as if he has no part and no stake in the whole thing, like, that is so morally wrong, right? Once again, it could be legally acceptable according to how these different government agencies are set up, but morally, it is atrocious. Rather than relentless redactions and prolonged court battles, it's past time for the government to disclose royalty payments as a matter of routine. The NIH needs to come clean with the American people and open the books on line-by-line royalty payments to the agencies and its scientists. And so, once again, when it came to the whole COVID thing, there's the Democrats who literally had their head up Anthony Fauci's colon, and then you had a lot of Republicans who were, jumping on the wagon of Trump saying, I basically got this perfect shot out there. It was all my doing, right? And then you had guys like Dr. Anthony Fauci, acting as if he had no stake or claim in this whole thing, telling you it was the right thing to do for your health. I mean, this was a perfect storm for people to get enormous amounts of misinformation in making health decisions, okay? And now as you're watching day after day, if you're paying attention to people being injured, all types of different diseases starting to pop up, severe issues happening every single day as a result of all this bad health information, it's very clear that the general population was taken advantage of by corporate interests. And instead of politicians doing their job, they were too busy acting like fools. And then we also had guys that were supposed to be doing their jobs who were considered federal employees designed to protect us, who are getting kickbacks and running away with bags and bags of cash. This is a perfect storm of a disaster, a healthcare disaster. And now we see doctors who are literally getting their license stripped away from them day after day for speaking out against this kind of thing. What a disaster. So anyway, once again, you can go to www.drz.tv and become a member. Support us in doing information like this. We truly appreciate it because we've pretty much been restricted on most social media platforms for delivering you this kind of information. So I'll put a link in the description below, and I appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, I think you'll really like this one over here next.